Hello there. It is February 6th of 2025. So this video, I don't really know exactly what it's going to be right off the bat. It's kind of another monologue / daily walk video, I suppose. I don't know, I'm going to hang out over here for at least a few minutes, and then I'll see if I want to go to a different spot on campus. And the weather's really nice right now, actually. It was actually going to, well, it did rain. It did rain, like earlier on this morning, and we even had tornado watch. There's even a few of those sirens, so I felt pretty unnerved by that. Because I was like, please no. I mean, I've been really glad that we've not really experienced any of those in my lifetime, where I've lived at. But I don't remember quite as much, unfortunately, the full reason as to why. But I know that when I was a kid, I had a few things that I had nightmares about, and or at least that really scared me. And one of these was tornadoes. Because I don't know, I don't remember exactly what it was. I remember, and I don't know if this is what caused it or whatnot, but when I watched, I think it was The Wizard of Oz for one of the first few times. Which is crazy because that's a fairly old movie. It's a classic though. To be honest, when I was a kid, I didn't really like it as much. I don't know. Actually, I didn't like a lot of movies and whatnot because it's interesting reflecting back on this now because my perspective has changed quite a lot. I haven't really thought about this in a very long time, but when I was a kid, when I was much younger, I wasn't really as accepting of emotions, in particular my own, and I kind of just tried to sort of, ignore, well, not ignore per se, but I tried to just kind of, not really think about it too much or play some of them off and whatnot. And I'm glad that I learned, throughout my years of life. I don't think there's ever necessarily a specific point in time that I ever decided to not feel that way or not act or think that way. But I kind of just have gradually come to that through some kind of process of experiences. Why are you getting so many notifications? I don't need to see those right now. Right. And, so yeah, I used to not be particularly, accepting of, of those. And I don't know how many other people that I really know knew that kind of thing. I figure probably my family, and my extended family did, or at least somewhat to some extent. And just for myself, because it felt awkward, it felt, quite vulnerable, and it felt like, if I was to share some of those, that I don't know. I've been I feel like I've been a fairly imaginative person for much of my life. And, not always, not all the time. Plenty of the times, no. But I've had many times in my life, especially when I'm listening to music, although not exclusively by any means, where I've sort of these, I don't know what the word for it is, sort of beautiful sort of scenes or images or whatever, and I just feel very sort of moved by that. I don't know. And like I feel like, oh, imagine this is what it feels like to be, in love with someone, or to, experience this sort of, level of, joy or happiness, or, whatnot. And I realize sometimes, maybe some of it was a little funny because, I was kind of, making things a little bigger, maybe than they necessarily actually were. For example, when I had, and I'm not going to say their names, but, and I might have mentioned this before briefly at some point, I don't really ever think about it anymore, but when I was in elementary school, between grades 3 and 5, for each of those years, I had a different random girl that I had, popular girl that I had a crush on, and, it was weird. But anyways, and I don't remember which of the years it was. I want to say it was either 4th or 5th grade, although it might have been 3rd. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I remember this one random time when me and my family, we were driving through, I want to say Lexington. And I think we had Sawgood. It's where my dad used to work at. So it was a really good restaurant. I think I've talked about it at least maybe a few times on my channel here. Not really that many. I don't know. Maybe I'm just misremembering. Right, but yeah. So, anyways, we were doing some stuff out, or whatever it was. I don't remember if we were getting some stuff from one of Mom's friends, or we went out to eat or whatnot. Because we made it. There's so many memories you have in that area. Over several years of my life. So they kind of getting all jumbled up now, unfortunately. But yeah, so there was this one time we were going through there, and it was really late evening, and the sun was going down, and it was like a super pretty, sunset and whatnot. I don't remember if we were listening to music in the car or not, and as I was thinking, I was just looking out the window, and my brother was probably looking out his window on the other side of the car, and my parents were talking in the front, and I looked out and I saw there's a whole bunch of, I think the sky was I feel like maybe I'm misremembering this, but the sky was really orange and red and pink. It was all sorts of bright colors. It was really pretty. And for whatever reason, I was in my head, I thought I'd give what was what, a drop of blood in order to make this person's, the person that I have a crush on, to make their day better, or however I phrased it, I don't know. So I don't know, kind of just a random little thing there. It feels a little weird saying it. It's I thought that when I was 9, 10, 11, I don't know how old I was at the time. I don't know. I guess I'm gonna get moving on to a different area. So yeah, there's that. But so anyways, the reason I kind of one of the sort of things to bring up the whole feelings thing is because, so today we actually had our first convocation of this term, and there was this cool speaker, and she came and she talked about how she came from this really poor background in LA, I think it was, and and how she managed to make it by 23, between 23 and 27 at some point around, I don't remember exactly whichever the two numbers it was. At some point, right, she actually became a millionaire, and she worked really hard, and and she was even able to help one of her parents retire. So the thing too was her mom was not a very good parent, but then she talked about the thing about how how even though her parent wasn't that kind to her when she was a child. Instead of being, mean back, she decided to be, to be nice and to help her out, and that, and that actually changed, how, her mother was too, right? Because, she decided, well, maybe I made some really bad mistakes, and whatnot. But then, her mother kind of came to become a kinder, more loving person. And I thought this was great. It was a nice story. And so, one of the things that I'm not upset about the story here. I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful to hear and see stories about people who come from to be honest, really shit backgrounds, right? Places where they may not have a good family or much income or resources, or they may struggle with any types of illness or whatever it may be, right? It doesn't even really necessarily matter. You pick whatever sort of circumstances you want for this, and to see that to see these people kind of rise up and do so well and have fantastic lives. I think that's awesome. I think that's really cool, and I hope a lot of people get that. I hope that more and more people get to experience that sort of freedom and new opportunity and whatnot. I think that's fantastic. The one thing that made me feel not angry, but I don't know what the right word for it is. Sad, or maybe a little frustrated. I'm not too sure. Like the thing was where she mentioned like how she said something about like like if you really want to work, so you're gonna get the 6 level of success, right? If you really want to do really well, you gotta go into the grind and and work all the time and all that. And I understand kind of like what she's getting at, and I'm really glad it worked out for her, and I think it can work for a lot of people. But my two things that really came to mind, and that it made me feel, I don't know, again, kind of sad, a little frustrated even to hear that. Not because she succeeded, but because, well, okay, one is, I'm not denying that, being successful or doing well, it doesn't, those do require a lot of hard work, and trying your best, and making connections with people and all these good things, right? I'm not denying that, but one is like the whole mental health thing, and the way that our culture just treats people like crap. Doesn't even value the sanctity of human life, beyond financial purposes, financial means, and I don't understand the full extent of this world that we live in, of this, country that I live in, at least right now, and I have lived my whole life, but I think you'll forgive me if you understand that I don't feel like capitalism, the system that this country lives in, or is under established by whatever, I don't really feel like that's a very humane or moral kind of kind of thing to have. System or framework to go by. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying any system is perfect. I'm not saying that, there's not going to be difficulties in anywhere in the world that you go. Because there certainly will be. Right? I'm not, and I do recognize that. I understand that truth. But, the fact that, so we have this whole idea here in America where we say this is the land of the free. Right? And yet, yes, I would say, we are, many Americans are, freer than a lot of other people in a lot of other places in the world are. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, this bell is distracting me every single time, I swear. It's like, how free are we really if you have to, basically be a slave to this, giant machine, and sell your time and your body essentially to, these, corporations, to these businesses that only care about making money, that care about making profit. Like, you'll excuse me if I value people's fucking lives, and mentality and well-being over making a goddamn few more dollars or euros or whatever currency. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter how much money you make, because you're all gonna die anyways. I mean, and I don't want to jump. And I realize, okay, yeah, sure, that's kind of getting off the rails there and a little extreme and whatnot. I'll take that back. But I think hopefully you get the point, right? Like, you don't take any of the stuff you get in this life with you to the afterlife after you die. Now, I don't know what anyone in my audience believes. Well, I mean, I know some, because some of my family, some of my family subscribe, a few friends are and all that, but most people subscribe to me. I don't know what their beliefs are, but at least it's the way that I believe as a Christian myself, my own interpretation of the beliefs. So I believe we have, we go to, I don't really know how it entirely works. I'm perfectly, it's a whole discussion thing I could go on about, heaven and hell and how that works and how we interpret biblical interpretations of those, or, how, Greek and Roman mythology and paganism and all that stuff has influenced, a lot of Christian traditions and belief systems. That'd be a whole interesting thing. I really don't want to go into that right now. It's just way too much stuff to talk about that, honestly, I'm just not in the mood for. Right? But, you don't take any of that stuff. You take yourself. You take, what are you gonna look back on when you're on your deathbed? And what are you gonna think about when you're looking back on your life in its entirety? And you're like, did I succeed? Did I do what I wanted to do? Did I become the person that I wanted to be? Did I, mark did I do these things I had on my bucket list? Whatever. And it's different things for everybody, right? But I feel like when I'm saying that, when I say the whole grind thing, or that, living under capitalism, or, the whole lies of the America tells us, or all these sort of things. And I know it's a lot of different pieces of stuff to talk in, but believe me, in my mind, it's all sort of connected. And honestly, I really appreciate anyone who's willing to stick around to hear my whole, spiel about this, whatever it may be. Really appreciate it. But the thing is, like, yes, there's a lot of people who can, really, really do well, really succeed. And yes, if you put yourself and you really work hard, you can do great things. You can achieve, a lot of things that you might want. But my question is not, can we achieve a lot of these things under, a capitalist model, the way it works in the United States? But should we? I mean, I think we're so focused on, getting things done that we don't take the time to question why we're even doing things in the first place. Or what's the point? Or who does this really benefit? Who does it really benefit to have, a lot of people, slaving their hours away to a job they don't, a bunch of jobs they don't care about in order to get benefits that, don't even apply half the time, because our stupid insurance system. Don't even get me started on how much I fucking hate that piece of garbage right now, and how much I'm genuinely not enthused at all to dive, a feet first into that, whole pool of, gooey, whatever, but, it's like, why, why do we have to be in a system, in a place, and just accept the fact that, like, look, this is just how it is. It's like the natural way of the world, if this is the best way to do things, that, America's the best. They make the most money, we're the most productive. Like, what does it matter if you make the most money, if you're the most productive, if you don't value human life, if you don't treat the people who fucking work for you well, if you don't, provide stuff that they need in order to have a high quality life, or to ensure their safety, their well-being, right? Like, when I was saying the whole insurance thing, like, for example, like, in a lot of other Western, developed countries, they have free healthcare systems. And, like, I'm not saying that I'm enthusiastic about, like, if I ever do move to any of those, about paying, high taxes on some of that shit. But, I mean, it's pretty good healthcare. And, like, yeah, I just say we have pretty decent healthcare here in the States, and we have, all sorts of fantastic. I'm not denying, like, the technological and medicinal, advancements people in this country have made. I'm not here to say that we've not done great and amazing things. I think lots of places have, and I'm okay with accepting that. I'm really glad, and I feel a little bit of pride knowing that, hey, all sorts of things that I, use and really like, that contribute to, whom I am, or my style, or, or even my YouTube channel, right? Like, all these things, they are contributing, they're made by, or they are foundational from all sorts of, really big American things, certain medicines, or companies producing certain technologies that kind of revolutionize the way that, we are able to communicate and find information. And I am so grateful for these things. I'm not here to say that it's all bad, because that would be a lie. And I think that would not be fully appreciating what I do have and acknowledging that truth. But the point is, again, it's not to criticize that we've done a lot of good things in this country, we've made a lot of advancements, but to focus on, these humane things, like I said, like the healthcare, or paid parental leave. When you raising a child, I mean, a lot of people in this country can't even afford to. It's like it's like otherworldly idea to them to think that, like, oh hey, if only I could spend a few hours, not a few hours, a few weeks, at least a few months, being home with your children in this critical point in their development, in their life, and to be there for them and to, nourish that connection and to nourish them. And we're not even getting into the whole, there's certain parts of the stuff like, the whole, what if the parents are bad and all that trauma things. I don't know. Again, I don't really have that much knowledge about that kind of stuff, and I genuinely do not know what to say on those matters. I don't feel comfortable talking about it because I just don't know, and I'd rather not speak on behalf of someone's experiences that I can't relate to. Maybe that was another play. That seems a little insensitive. That what I'm trying to say with that is that I want to be supportive of those, who going through a lot of stuff. And I don't want to just try to make it seem like I'm just trying to simplify. I want, the voice or the understanding of real world issues to come from people who have said real world issues, who experience those in their daily lives. That's what I meant. That's what I meant. I don't want to make words up for something that I don't truly know, because I feel like that'd be a disrespectful thing to do. Right. So it's like, yes, work hard. Work hard to achieve things. Work hard to succeed. And, take your time and do things well. Learn a lot of stuff in order to overcome challenges. Yes. But, no, I don't know. Yes, at some part, okay, sure, yeah, I'm young, and it just scares me to think about what the fuck am I going to try to do with my life in the next, 10, 15 years. I have no idea entirely, right? I'm young. I don't know a lot of shit. I don't have a ton of real world experience. You could be like, well, I've been in college, but college is not the real world. I don't really know what it's like, firsthand to live through a lot of the shit that's out there, and I'm sure as hell going to have a lot of experience with stuff like that. And I don't know. Only the future can tell. Only time can really, really say. And I don't want to go on about that for too much longer. Right? But at least in, that seems other countries, and they're not perfect. I know that. But at least you have a higher guaranteed rate of knowing that if you fuck up, if you make mistakes, your life is not on the line. That you have a government that actually, a country that actually values your fucking life, is willing to give a damn about it, willing to provide, at least decent health care to you, that's willing to, take care of the environment that you live in, so you don't have to worry about, getting sick, or from bad air or bad water, or food that has tons of crazy additives in it. Hell, I don't know what the research is on this exactly, but I've seen lots of shit about, lots of videos about, lots of things online about how people, both who lived here in the United States and people who lived abroad, right? Not just people who lived here or the other way, from different countries. They come here, or they come back here, and then they eat basically the same stuff, even if they're eating fairly well, and they gain a shit ton more weight than they would in these other countries. Even if they are dieting, even if they are, exercising and drinking enough water and getting enough sleep and having, taking care of themselves, it is harder to lose weight in this country or to maintain a healthier body size, to prevent getting, certain diseases or having certain conditions than it is in some other places in this world, right? And it contributed to the fact that, with our food, again, we care more about things being fast, efficient, getting, stuff out, making things, cheap and widely available and whatnot. And it's good to, have things that are widely available. It's really nice. You can help lots of people in that way. And sometimes it's used for the right things. But, if we're going to nourish people, if we're going to give them food, you might as well give them good food. You might as well not, constantly throw a whole bunch of, food that's, it's very junky, that has lots of extra sugar and fat and cholesterol and salt in them, and just throw them in people's faces and say, oh, you have to be rich. You have to be rich. You have to have time in order to eat well. How insulting that sounds to me, that I'm not allowed to have a good, I'm not allowed to, have a healthy body unless I just fucking, swimming in cash. That's absurd. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm alone in that standpoint. Everyone else thinks it's perfectly reasonable that, like a burger from McDonald's is cheaper than, some fucking pieces of fruit or vegetables, fresh vegetables or fruit that is good for you, that has tons of nutrients, that has lots of water, and, has all sorts of things that help people feel better. And we don't even really give people the time to really enjoy life. I get, working hard, but you have to have some fun. You have to have some, at least the way I think about it, you have to have some kind of time to enjoy life and to enjoy connections with people, to find passions, stuff you're interested in, not just for a job, not just so you can make more money off of it, but because it makes you feel alive, because it makes you feel like you have stuff that, makes you want to, do things, or just have, sort of just, live for the sake of it. It does not everything has to be for money. Not everything has to be, supposed to try to squeeze more money. I mean, really, how desperate, really how desperate do these people have to be to try to take every last little bit of your time and your resources from you to do that? That's just absurd to me. And again, I don't know all the problems that exist in other countries, and a lot of the places have similar issues, housing crisis, political shenanigans going on, all sorts of crazy stuff. There's crazy things happening everywhere in the world. I'm pretty sure of that. Right. But it's just, this is just what I thought of. And I know maybe it's a lot for me to, after just hearing this, nice story from this, pretty nice lady, about how she's, lived and what she's achieved in the last, few decades of her life. Right? And I think she was in her late 30s, something like that. And I think that's awesome. She's able to succeed. I'm not upset at all about that fact. But it's why should we, even be willing to accept or take pride in living in a place that doesn't really care about you? That doesn't really care about your friends, your family, anyone's life, really. It's just to put more money in the pockets of the rich. It's just to put more power in the hands of those who already have it, and who don't care about, you know, doing the right thing. You know, like, it just is. And I am sorry, it's kind of long. It's, 35, 36 minutes. I'm sorry about that. I don't know. I mean, I'm glad at least, it's nice. Today's not been too bad. I got some stuff done already before I went on over to the convocation, so I feel good about that. And even a few things early this morning, and I didn't see any progress on the Australia study abroad program, unfortunately, but it's fine. Glad I checked at least, and I cleared a bunch of emails. I, cleaned up myself, and, a few other things. I feel pretty good about that. I think it was really nice. And I would like to get to editing the Minecraft video I did last week on Friday, I think it was. Again, I've worked more on that, and I don't know if I'm going to finish that tonight or not. Honestly, we'll just have to see. I've made some progress though, so at least there's that. But anyways, if you found this video interesting or you enjoyed it, whatever it may be, regardless if you agree or disagree with anything I said, perfectly fine if you have a very different opinion of your own. I mean, that's a normal thing. That's all right. I'm okay with that. Then feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell. I have reached 50 subscribers. I reached my goal here, so thank you guys so much. I don't know if I'll have it out today, but I do hope within the next week or two to have at least a few small things, a few small videos out. I don't want to reveal all the stuff just yet. It's gonna have to be a nice little surprise and whatnot. But anyways, look, keep your eyes peeled out for those if you're interested. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. Oh, there's this random dog just walking up here. How's a collar on it? Okay, so I know it's. All right, well, don't know what that's. I don't know. Anyways, see ya.